Carl Jung reveals the hidden trick to instantly shift power. True power is often quiet, Carl Jung once said. And in today's world of noise and dominance, that truth couldn't be more relevant. What if the real shift in power doesn't come from control, but from presence? How you hold your silence, how you hold your gaze, how you hold yourself. In this episode of Spiritual Wisdom, we reveal Jung's hidden insight into how power can be instantly shifted not through force, but through inner authority. As you listen, ask yourself, how do you show up when no one is watching? Share your thoughts in the comments. How do you shift the energy in a room without saying a word? 1. Power in everyday interactions is subtle and psychological. Power doesn't always scream. It often whispers. And in those whispers lies a force far greater than dominance. In daily interactions, we are constantly engaged in an invisible psychological dance, a quiet struggle for influence that doesn't rely on raised voices or aggressive tactics, but instead on presence, perception, and restraint. Carl Jung illuminated the hidden mechanisms of this power, revealing that true control isn't about overpowering others, but mastering oneself. The ego is quick to respond, eager to win, obsessed with being right. But real power emerges when you resist the urge to react and instead choose stillness. In conversations, disagreements, and even passing glances, people unconsciously test one another's center of gravity. They gauge how easily you can be pulled off balance. But the spiritually awakened understand that silence is not passivity, it is precision. It is the art of staying rooted while others sway, of choosing intentional non-reaction over emotional entanglement. In a world addicted to validation, silence becomes rebellion. And in that rebellion, you reclaim the authority over your own energy. Spirituality teaches that energy is currency. Every reaction you give is a transaction, and too often, people bankrupt themselves emotionally by overinvesting in battles that don't deserve their presence. But the one who has learned to pause, to observe before responding, is the one who owns the room, not because they seized it, but because their vibration naturally commands it. Jung reminds us that the unconscious drives our behaviors, especially in moments of stress or conflict. When someone insults you, tests you, mocks you, it is not just about what they said, but what part of you feels the need to prove itself. And if that part is still wounded, it will scream to be heard. But if you've done the work, if you've healed, reflected, and awakened, you'll find that you don't need to fight back. Your non-reaction becomes your mirror, reflecting back to them their own chaos, their own noise, their own need for control. This is not just emotional maturity, it's spiritual alchemy, the ability to transmute tension into clarity, attack into peace, noise into wisdom. Power, then, is not about how many words you speak, but how deeply you listen. It's not in your ability to dominate, but in your willingness to remain centered when others lose themselves. When you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, when you walk away, not out of weakness, but out of alignment, you are embodying a higher form of power, one that isn't performative, but energetic. Modern life constantly pulls us into reaction notifications, gossip, arguments, digital drama, but the spiritually awakened know how to unplug from that chaos, to retreat into the sanctuary of stillness where real decisions are made. When you practice that level of awareness, your energy becomes untouchable. You no longer respond to every jab or invitation to chaos, because you know your frequency is your fortress. The more you trust this, the more magnetic you become. People won't always understand it, but they will feel the calm, the confidence, the clarity that only comes when you no longer seek to control others, but have mastered yourself. That is the hidden trick Carl Jung reveals, not the kind of power that controls the world, but the kind that frees you from needing to. Comment below, "I master subtle power," if you're ready to shift energy in every interaction with quiet confidence and spiritual wisdom. 2. Defending yourself signals weakness. Contrary to what most people believe, the moment you defend yourself when someone criticizes you is not the moment you reclaim your strength. It's the moment you subtly surrender it. Carl Jung understood this deeply. In the realm of spirituality and spiritual development, power is not something that is shouted or proven. It is something that is remembered. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to clarify your intention, or to argue back, what you're truly doing is revealing that the other person has struck a nerve. Your defense becomes a confession. You touched something I'm not yet at peace with. And this unconscious signal creates an energetic shift, one where the person criticizing you gains subtle control, not because they were right, but because they provoked a reaction that exposed your vulnerability. In deep psychology, this is known as exposing the vulnerable self. And while the conscious mind believes it's defending its honor, the subconscious is revealing its wounds. This plays out in everyday life more than we realize. A colleague challenges your decision in a meeting, and your instinct is to interrupt and explain. A partner questions your motives, and you rush to justify. A stranger online mocks your opinion, and you reply with facts to prove your intelligence. But in all these moments, what you've really done is handed over the power of your emotional state to someone else. Jung's insight was that the truly powerful individual is not the one who speaks the most eloquently or defends themselves the loudest, but the one who has no compulsion to prove anything at all. Power lives in the pause. It exists in the restraint. It rises from inner clarity, not external validation. This shift in energy is what separates those who react from those who lead. When you begin to walk the path of spiritual development, you start to recognize that every interaction is more than verbal. It's vibrational. And when you can hold your center in silence without shrinking or flaring up, you create a field of stability that others instinctively feel. You become the anchor in the room, the mirror instead of the sponge. You reflect the energy without absorbing it. You remain rooted in your self-knowledge while others lose themselves in the noise. And this is not weakness, it's wisdom. The mature soul no longer seeks to be right. It seeks to remain aligned. The next time someone criticizes you or tries to pull you into emotional warfare, notice the space between their words and your need to respond. That space is sacred. That pause is power. Say nothing, and you say everything. Not because you're avoiding truth, but because you've outgrown the need to be reactive. Silence, in this context, is not passive. It's a signal of energetic authority. You no longer engage to win, because you've already won within. And that's what spiritual growth ultimately leads you to, a place where the opinions of others are not threats, but reflections of where they are, not who you are. In that space, your presence becomes your message, your energy becomes your boundary, and your silence becomes the loudest proof that you have nothing to defend because you've become someone who no longer plays the game. Are you ready to embrace the kind of power that speaks through calm presence, not defense? If so, comment below. I choose silence to show your commitment to inner strength and spiritual wisdom. 3. The real power lies in composure and silence. Power does not shout, and it does not rush to defend itself. True power whispers through the stillness of your presence. When someone hurls criticism at you or tries to provoke a reaction, your strength is not measured by how quick or clever your comeback is. It's revealed in how little you need to respond at all. The real shift happens when you no longer feel the urge to explain yourself, because explanation implies permission-seeking, and spiritual wisdom knows no such need. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He knew that the moment you feel compelled to defend, you've already given a part of your power away. That's why silence, when chosen with awareness, is not avoidance. It's dominance through detachment. It breaks the rhythm of conflict. It disrupts the attacker's script. It throws their ego into confusion because they were expecting a reaction, and you gave them stillness instead. Silence is not the absence of voice. It's the presence of depth. It is spiritual intelligence embodied, because in that silence, you are no longer a player in their drama. You are the observer of the entire stage. When you choose composure, you rise above the unconscious loop of reaction and resistance. That is where the subtle shift of power happens, not with noise, but with grace. Most people think authority lies in speaking louder, proving a point, or being visibly strong. But Jung taught that individuation, the journey of becoming your most whole self, requires internal clarity, not external validation. You do not need to announce your truth when your energy makes it known. In fact, when your presence is rooted in calm certainty, words become optional. The more you explain, the more you give away your center. And when you defend, it often sounds like you're confessing something, even when you're not. That's the trap. The more you try to be understood, the more you signal to others that their understanding matters more than your own alignment. But the spiritually awakened know, validation is not food. It's a drug. It's fleeting. It's addictive. And it will have you shrinking your power just to keep the peace. But composure says, I am the peace. You are not rejecting the other person. You are choosing not to entertain energy that dishonors your frequency. The refusal to engage in dysfunction is not coldness. It is intelligence. In every conversation, there's an invisible exchange of energy. When you resist the urge to react, you hold the highest frequency in the room. And that frequency does not beg, argue, or tremble. It just is. That's what rattles people. Not your words, your restraint. Not your dominance, your detachment. You instantly shift power when you say nothing and mean everything. Jung didn't just study the mind, he studied the soul. And he knew that the soul does not scream to be seen. It glows. And that glow is your power. When you no longer need to prove who you are, you finally become who you are. That is the invisible revolution. That is where real authority begins. 4. Perception is reality. People don't respond to the truth, they respond to perception. In a society obsessed with noise, image, and instant validation, the real power doesn't lie in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply you hold your center. As Carl Jung observed, what truly influences people is not your logic or facts, but how your presence makes them feel. Perception is reality, and perception is built not on words, but on energy. When you understand this, you no longer waste energy defending yourself or proving your worth. Instead, you master the art of spiritual presence. You embody stillness. You radiate control. You shift the dynamic without lifting a finger. In that moment, people don't hear your argument. They feel your energy. They feel your boundaries. They feel the difference between someone reacting and someone rooted. This is the spiritual awakening Jung spoke of, not just an insight, but a transformation in how you show up. Influence, in its highest form, is silent. It's the calm in your voice, the grounded look in your eyes, the steady breath you take when others are triggered. It's the pause that interrupts chaos. Jung, and even Machiavelli, knew that the one who holds their energy with intention creates a field of control without needing to dominate. When you choose not to explain yourself, not to correct someone's false assumptions, not to panic when misunderstood, you become something rare, untouchable. At that moment, people recalibrate around you. They sense there is something in you they can't figure out, and that mystery is magnetic. It draws them in. It disarms their projections. It makes you unforgettable, not because you said more, but because you said less and meant more. The power is in your restraint. This is not about manipulation. It's about emotional and spiritual intelligence. It's about knowing that your power lies in how you respond, not how you react. Most people believe they win by arguing harder, speaking faster, outwitting the opponent. But in truth, the one who doesn't flinch, who doesn't chase approval, who doesn't fight for recognition, wins. Because they're already full. They're already home within themselves. That is the invisible authority that reshapes a room. That is the kind of presence that makes people trust you, follow you, respect you, and sometimes fear you, not because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. In a spiritual sense, this is discipline. It is the quiet fire that burns away the need to be right and leaves behind only clarity, alignment, and deep peace. When you awaken spiritually, you begin to notice the subtle language of energy. You recognize that silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. That not reacting is not avoidance, it's mastery. That self-control is not repression, it's power. In relationships, in leadership, in daily life, the way you manage perception shapes the way people treat you. The way you manage your emotions shapes the way reality responds to you. You don't have to fix anyone's view of you. You don't have to correct every misconception. You don't have to argue your worth. You just have to walk with intention. Let your quiet energy carry the message. I am unshakable. That is how you shift power, not with force, but with presence. That is how you awaken not through explanation, but through embodiment. And that is how you begin to live from your highest spiritual intelligence. Stay connected with our community of seekers by subscribing to Spiritual Wisdom. Here, we dive deep into Carl Jung's teachings and reveal how perception shapes your reality. Remember, you hold the power to shift your world by shifting your awareness. 5. The power of symbolic behavior. In Jungian psychology, symbolic behaviors like silence, stillness, and calm restraint are not passive traits. They are spiritual signals of deep self-possession and authority, rooted in archetypes that transcend culture and time. When you choose not to engage in every argument, not to react to every provocation, you are not avoiding conflict. You are shifting the entire dynamic of power. The wise one, the sage, the teacher, all of these archetypes exist in the collective unconscious as symbols of influence, not through volume, but through presence. Jung believed that the most commanding force in a room is often the one who speaks the least but radiates the most. In a world that equates loudness with leadership and quick rebuttals with intelligence, the one who can pause, observe, and respond from stillness is the one who actually holds the upper hand. This isn't about silence for the sake of submission. It's about reclaiming energy, choosing sovereignty, and asserting your boundaries without needing external permission. In a spiritual sense, your refusal to play the unconscious power games of others is not weakness. It is mastery. You are not here to prove your worth through noise. Your energy, refined through spiritual development, already speaks volumes before you utter a word. Stillness, in this context, becomes an act of resistance, a refusal to be pulled into chaos, a bold statement that you have nothing to prove and no one to impress. Jung's insight reveals that symbolic acts are more than surface gestures. They communicate with the deeper psyche, with the soul, and with the spiritual fabric of those around you. When you embody calm, others subconsciously recognize it as stability. When you pause instead of retaliate, you're not backing down, you're rising above. This is the hidden trick to instantly shift power. Step out of the reactive dance, and suddenly you become the conductor of energy instead of its captive. Your spiritual evolution is revealed not through dominance, but through discernment. Power, in its most transcendent form, comes from knowing that you don't need to chase validation, and that your restraint does not lack its leadership. The more you develop spiritually, the less you feel the urge to win every conversation or assert every opinion. Your presence becomes the punctuation. You walk into a space, and people adjust without knowing why. You speak softly, and others lean in. You don't compete, you align. You don't fight, you reflect. And in that reflection, people meet parts of themselves they've forgotten. This is the invisible influence Jung understood so well, that the strongest among us are those who have mastered the inner world so completely that the outer world cannot shake them. In practical terms, this means choosing your response with intention. It means recognizing when someone is baiting you into reaction, and instead of biting, you breathe, you hold your ground, you remain unmoved, not from pride, but from power. True spiritual development isn't loud, performative, or aggressive. It's quiet, intelligent, and sovereign. It's the kind of power that makes others reflect before they speak, that disarms without attacking, that commands without needing control. And in this deep psychological and spiritual awareness, you become more than a participant in life. You become the atmosphere itself. 6. Silence as a mirror. When someone tries to provoke you, control you, or dominate a situation, most people rush to defend themselves, to respond quickly, to be heard louder or sharper. But Carl Jung, in his deep understanding of human nature and shadow psychology, reveals a far more intelligent path. Silence not as passivity, but as conscious power. When you don't react, when you offer no emotional engagement, you create a powerful spiritual mirror. That silence, steady and unwavering, exposes the true energy of the other person. Their aggression has nothing to latch onto, and so it begins to turn inward. What they see in your stillness is not compliance, but confrontation of a different kind, a confrontation with themselves. Spiritual wisdom teaches that real power doesn't need an audience. It doesn't chase validation. It simply exists, fully anchored in inner clarity. This is not about avoiding conflict. It is about transcending it. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So when you meet tension with silence, you aren't being weak. You are allowing the other to witness their own unresolved tension without interference. You are not trying to win, but instead, you're holding the frame, and in doing so, you shift the entire power dynamic. Your silence becomes intelligence in motion. You're no longer dancing to someone else's rhythm. You become the rhythm. And the discomfort they feel, that's not your burden. That's the echo of their own projections ricocheting in the space you left unoccupied. In this act of spiritual detachment, you are not removing yourself from power. You are revealing who truly possesses it. Most people believe that power lies in fast words, clever comebacks, or loud dominance. But the more awakened you become, the more you realize that presence speaks louder than noise. To be calm while being tested is not only spiritual maturity, it's energetic mastery. In your silence, you are not frozen. You are grounded. You are not helpless. You are aligned. And that unshakable alignment speaks volumes without ever raising its voice. In a world that feeds on urgency, your refusal to react becomes a sacred disruption. You disrupt their expectations, their control patterns, their emotional games. And while they scramble to make sense of your calm, you've already shifted the center of gravity. This is the hidden trick Carl Jung points toward the moment you realize that power isn't something you grab. It's something you embody. It's not reactive, it's responsive. It doesn't seek the spotlight, it is the light. And the more spiritually intelligent you become, the less you waste energy on proving anything. Instead, you conserve it, guard it, direct it with intention. Because you understand now, real strength whispers. Real boundaries are quiet. Real awakening doesn't need applause. It simply radiates. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their drama, remember, you are not obligated to attend every battle you're invited to. Let silence be your sword, your shield, your sovereignty. Let it reveal what words can never express. You have nothing to prove because you already know who you are. If this message resonates with you, repeat after me. In the stillness, I find clarity. In the silence, I receive the truth. This message is meant for me, and I trust its timing. 7. Strategic use in all life areas. Whether you're in a high-stakes meeting, navigating emotional tension in a romantic relationship, dealing with generational patterns in your family, or simply responding to subtle energy shifts in social spaces, the real power never lies in loud declarations or defensive arguments. It lies in the mastery of your inner world. Carl Jung didn't just explore the shadow and unconscious mind for philosophical purposes. He revealed that those who can remain centered, composed, and quietly self-aware in emotionally charged moments are the ones who influence the unseen dynamics of any environment. It's not about suppressing how you feel. It's about spiritually awakening to a level where you can feel everything deeply, yet choose not to be driven by it. In that space of conscious restraint, you no longer react from wounded patterns. You respond from grounded intelligence. You begin to notice that people lean in, not because you're loud, but because you're anchored. When chaos arises, you don't dissolve into it, you transmute it. You're not playing the same game as everyone else anymore. You've remembered who you are. This spiritual wisdom shows up in the most ordinary moments. Someone tries to bait you into conflict, you breathe. Your partner projects their pain, so you stay soft but solid. Your boss questions your ideas. You don't shrink, and you don't over-explain. You let your energy speak before your words do. There is a sacred intelligence in this kind of silence, a psychological elegance that transcends ego battles. Jung understood that beneath all forms of domination and power plays is a hidden fear, and those who face their shadows no longer need to dominate to feel powerful. They become alchemists of the atmosphere, changing the temperature of a room by simply entering it. This is not about being stoic in the traditional sense. This is about presence. And presence is not quiet because it's afraid presence is quiet, because it already knows. The awakened being doesn't raise their voice because their aura already holds weight. They don't compete because they already embody wholeness. They don't explain endlessly because they trust who they are without external validation. In modern life, this is a superpower. When everyone else is shouting to be heard, your silence becomes magnetic. When people are addicted to being right, your detachment becomes a mirror to their chaos. When society rewards quick comebacks and emotional outbursts, you become the rare one who knows that the most impactful thing you can do is say nothing and still shift everything. That doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're intentional. It means you understand energy. It means you've walked through the fire of needing to be seen and have emerged with the calm assurance that your very presence is enough. The next time you find yourself in a triggering situation, pause and remember this. You don't need to match the noise. You are the balance. Your stillness is not silence. It is a signal. And that signal carries more power than 1,000 words ever could. 8. Final insight. Power comes from inner stability. The real trick to instantly shifting power, as Carl Jung wisely revealed, lies not in overpowering others or raising your voice, but in the mastery of your own emotional responses. When someone tries to provoke you, bait you, or drag you into a reactive spiral, the deepest form of power is revealed in your stillness. Not reacting is not avoidance. It is transcendence. It is the ability to sit in the eye of the storm and not flinch, to witness someone else's chaos and choose not to match it. This level of inner command comes from a deep-rooted spirituality, one that has outgrown the need to win arguments or dominate spaces. It comes from spiritual development that teaches you to respond, not react, to pause and observe, rather than be pulled into someone else's narrative. When you learn to master this pause, you become the axis around which the energy in the room turns. You don't have to force control. You are in control. You don't have to demand respect. You radiate it. Your very presence becomes a mirror, showing others the parts of themselves they have not yet mastered. You will notice that people who seek to provoke you will eventually feel uncomfortable in your stillness, because your calm reveals their chaos, your clarity exposes their confusion, and your restraint makes their aggression look loud, desperate, and misplaced. Power, when understood through the lens of spirituality, is not about dominance, but about self-containment. Jung's insight, "He who controls himself controls the room," reminds us that influence begins with inner authority. The people who leave the strongest impressions are not those who speak the most, but those whose silence commands attention. In moments where others are fighting to be seen, the one who does not flinch, who does not defend, who simply observes with presence, becomes magnetic. This is not arrogance. This is energetic sovereignty. This is where the journey of spiritual development separates from mere emotional maturity. The silence becomes strategic. The stillness becomes a signal. The lack of reaction is not weakness. It's wisdom, discipline, and sacred self-protection. Every time you choose not to react, you are conserving energy, protecting your peace, and maintaining control over your personal frequency. This is not about suppression, but precision. You are not denying your emotions. You are discerning their worth. Not every insult deserves your fire. Not every confrontation earns your attention. You begin to realize that power is not something to prove, it is something to preserve. The world teaches us that to win, we must be loud, fast, and assertive. But spiritual wisdom teaches the opposite. The most powerful souls are often the quietest in the room. They don't react because they see beyond the surface. They don't engage in every battle because they are already victorious within. Their power comes not from controlling others, but from never letting others control them. This inner calm becomes a force field, a boundary, and a sacred ground no one can invade without permission. In spiritual development, you learn that emotional restraint is not bottling up, but rising above. You learn that calmness in the face of conflict is not detachment, but divine intelligence. And you begin to recognize that the less you react, the more power you hold, not over others, but over yourself. And that, ultimately, is the only power that lasts. And remember, true power isn't always loud. It's often hidden in silence, presence, and inner alignment. As Carl Jung reminds us, in all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom to stay connected to this journey of awakening. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with spiritual insight and psychological depth. Until next time, stay grounded, stay wise, and keep shifting your inner power. The unmistakable signs someone is truly meant for you. Carl Jung once said, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see." Have you ever felt that someone entered your life at the exact moment you needed them? Not by chance, but as if life itself conspired to bring your paths together? In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore the unmistakable signs that someone is truly meant for you, whether it's a soulmate, a mentor, a friend, or even a brief encounter with profound purpose. These aren't just ideas to think about. They're principles you can apply to your daily life to bring more clarity, connection, and peace into your relationships. What do you believe? Is it fate, alignment, or something deeper? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. 1. There are no accidental encounters, only synchronicity. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity reveals that the people who enter your life are not random. They're messengers of meaning, reflections of your inner world seeking wholeness. In spiritual awakening, these encounters are not measured by time or logic, but by resonance. You feel it in your bones when someone is truly meant for you, not because they check all the boxes, but because their presence awakens a forgotten part of you. They arrive just as you're ready, not a second too soon or too late, mirroring your readiness to grow, heal, or transform. Whether it's a friend who says exactly what your soul needed to hear, a mentor who shifts your entire perspective, or a romantic partner who cracks your heart wide open, these are not mere coincidences. They are alignments of purpose, orchestrated by a deeper intelligence that sees beyond what the eye can. The human soul longs for recognition, and the people meant for us often trigger that recognition with uncanny precision. It's not about perfection, it's about activation. These individuals often show up when you least expect them, but most need them guiding you into deeper dimensions of self. Some encounters are gentle, others are confrontational, but all are significant. They carry energy that shakes you, challenges you, liberates you. Jung believed that these connections surface from the unconscious to make the unseen seen, to pull you closer to your center. And in that moment, you don't just meet a person, you meet a part of yourself you hadn't yet discovered. The pull isn't logical, it's energetic, emotional, and spiritual. You sense that they've been walking toward you, just as you've been walking toward them, even if neither of you realized it. In modern life, where noise, distraction, and superficiality run rampant, recognizing these connections requires stillness. It requires the courage to trust your intuition, to follow the subtle inner signals that tell you, this person matters. Often, they don't come with clarity, they come with intensity. They may not soothe you right away. They may stir your wounds, call out your shadows, or shake up your world. But that too is sacred, because sometimes the soul doesn't crave comfort, it craves evolution. And the people who are truly meant for you won't just agree with who you are, they will pull you into who you are becoming. That is the gift of true alignment. It is felt more than it is explained, known more than it is analyzed. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that every meaningful connection is a message from the universe, a breadcrumb on the path of awakening. You are not here to chase people or question their timing. You are here to notice the ones who bring clarity to your confusion, light to your dark corners, and movement to your stagnant places. These are the ones who are not just passing through, they are passing something to you. A memory, a shift, a choice. Pay attention, because the soul does not make casual appointments. It makes contracts. And in honoring those contracts, you begin to realize that you're not just falling into relationships, you're being called into alignment. Have you ever experienced a moment so perfectly timed, it felt like the universe was speaking directly to you? If you believe there are no accidental encounters, only synchronicity, comment below. I trust divine timing. 2. Every relationship is a mirror. Every relationship you enter holds a mirror to your soul, either reflecting your spiritual development or revealing the wounds you've yet to heal. When a connection feels like you're constantly walking on eggshells, adjusting your words to avoid conflict, or hiding your truth to be accepted, it's a clear sign the bond is rooted in survival, not spirituality. You begin to mold yourself to fit someone else's comfort while abandoning your own emotional truth. This isn't alignment, it's emotional camouflage. Carl Jung reminds us, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But the transformation should elevate you, not erase you. When a connection is truly meant for you, it awakens your essence rather than demanding your silence. It feels like resonance, not resistance. It invites you to be real, not rehearsed. It becomes a safe space where your authenticity is not only welcomed, but cherished. You no longer feel the need to please, chase, or prove yourself. Instead, you feel seen without performance, heard without noise, loved without condition. In a relationship aligned with your spiritual development, energy flows with ease. Conversations don't drain you, they expand you. Silence doesn't feel like punishment, it feels like peace. The connection doesn't mirror your fears, it mirrors your light. But false mirrors distort. They pull you into patterns where love feels anxious, where presence feels conditional, and where your identity is compromised. These mirrors replay your childhood wounds, your fear of abandonment, your need to earn love. And yet, it is in recognizing these patterns that spiritual awakening begins. You start to ask better questions. Does this connection honor my truth? Does it allow me to grow without guilt? Does it feel like home or like a test I keep failing? Spirituality teaches that when someone is meant for you, they don't rescue you. They remind you who you are. They don't demand that you change to meet their needs. They evolve with you, walking beside you in truth. Their love doesn't require translation. It speaks the language of your soul. You begin to discern that real connection doesn't threaten your freedom. It expands it. You understand that being loved isn't about being chosen in someone else's story, but about choosing yourself enough to only allow mirrors that reflect your highest self. So if you find yourself constantly questioning your worth in someone's presence, shrinking to keep the peace, or trading truth for attachment, it's not love, it's survival, dressed as connection. And you're here for more. You're here to rise, to awaken, to walk in relationships where love is not earned through sacrifice, but felt through resonance. Because in the end, it's not about who stays, it's about who helps you stay true to yourself. That is the mirror worth keeping. Comment below. I embrace the mirror. If you're ready to grow through every soul connection that reflects your truth. 3. Real connection feels like peace, not chaos. When someone is truly meant for you, the connection feels like inner stillness, not emotional turbulence. It's not about fireworks that leave you burned, but about a quiet presence that grounds you. With them, you don't feel the urge to chase, to prove yourself, or to perform for love. You don't shrink your truth to keep the peace, nor do you second-guess your worth after every interaction. Their energy is not chaotic, it's calming. Their presence doesn't pull you into overthinking, it invites you into clarity. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But the transformation isn't destructive. It's illuminating. With the right person, you evolve with ease, not exhaustion. You feel emotionally safe enough to expand, spiritually awake enough to discern the difference between comfort and control, and wise enough to choose peace over patterns. Real connection isn't addictive. It's nourishing. It doesn't ignite your insecurities. It heals them. There's no guessing game, no back and forth energy, no deep pit in your stomach after the phone call ends. The bond is defined by emotional intelligence and spiritual wisdom, not emotional chaos. It's when conversations flow naturally, silences are sacred, and your nervous system finally exhales. It's when you feel seen, not for who you pretend to be, but for who you are beneath the layers. And that seeing becomes the sacred mirror that reflects your light back to you, without distortion, without judgment. But when a connection is rooted in misalignment, your spirit knows. It feels like walking on broken glass while calling it love. You give more than you receive. You overextend in the name of keeping peace, and you tolerate inconsistency disguised as passion. Chaos becomes your normal, and you begin to confuse anxiety for connection. And yet, deep down, something in you aches for a different kind of love, one that doesn't leave you emotionally bankrupt. When the person is not meant for you, your soul whispers louder with each misstep. This is not it. Because when you're constantly negotiating for your place in someone's life, you're not being loved, you're being tolerated. A person who is truly meant for you will never ask you to betray your peace to keep the relationship alive. Instead, they will meet you with calm clarity, with energy that softens you, not hardens you. You'll feel inspired to rise, not pressured to shrink. They will recognize your worth without you having to package it. And most importantly, you won't feel like you're trying to survive the connection. You'll feel like you're finally alive within it. That is the intelligence of spiritual alignment. That is the frequency of a soul-deep bond. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it is unmistakably real. If this message of peace over chaos resonates with your soul, subscribe and tap the bell. Your journey towards spiritual wisdom and deeper, real connection continues here, one insight at a time. 4. Solitude is sacred preparation. Society may idolize constant connection, but Jung understood something deeper, that solitude is not a void to be feared, but a sacred vessel for spiritual awakening and inner refinement. Solitude is where the masks fall away, where you meet the unfiltered version of yourself, beyond the roles you play, the validation you chase, and the noise you confuse with belonging. When you choose solitude consciously, you're not isolating, you're initiating. You are stepping into a realm where the soul speaks louder than society's expectations, where individuation begins not through external affirmation, but by embracing the silent truth within. Jung believed that the journey of individuation requires a descent into the self, and solitude becomes the necessary terrain for that descent. It's not punishment, it's purification. It's not exile, it's evolution. The moment you stop looking for someone to complete you and begin reclaiming the parts of yourself you once abandoned for approval, something profound shifts. You start to realize that relationships built from emptiness only mirror your internal fractures. Love becomes a projection of your unmet needs rather than a reflection of your wholeness. But when you emerge from solitude with self-respect and emotional clarity, you carry an aura that no longer begs to attract you. You no longer seek love as a remedy. You embody love as a frequency. This is the intelligence of spiritual wisdom, the recognition that healthy relationships are not a replacement for solitude, but a reward for having mastered it. People who are truly meant for you will not be drawn to your wounds, but to your wholeness, to the peace you cultivated in silence, to the clarity you birthed in the dark. In a world that equates presence with performance, solitude becomes your rebellion, a sacred defiance that says, "I will not abandon myself to be accepted by others." You begin to understand that solitude isn't about being alone. It's about being whole. And when you are whole, you become magnetic to those who are spiritually aligned, emotionally available, and energetically clean. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy, chaos with chemistry, and attention with affection. You see through the illusion. You honor the quiet because you have learned that real connection does not disrupt your peace. It deepens it. It doesn't rescue you from solitude. It respects the path that got you there. Solitude becomes your filter, your refinement, your inner temple where discernment is sharpened and soul contracts are remembered. So every moment you spend alone is not wasted time. It is sacred preparation. It is a cosmic tuning of your frequency so that what enters your life next doesn't just excite your ego, but expands your soul. You're not waiting. You're awakening. You are aligning yourself, not with people who fill time, but with those who recognize truth. The silence you're sitting in now is the birthplace of everything divine that's coming. Not because you chased it, but because you became the version of yourself that no longer needs to. This is what it means to walk in the energy of spiritual awakening, to no longer seek wholeness outside, but to become so rooted in it within that only what is truly meant for you can find you. If you're still here, fully present with us, comment below. I'm honoring my sacred solitude. Your engagement helps us grow and reach more souls on the path of spiritual awakening. 5. You attract what you believe you deserve. The reason you keep attracting partners who leave you feeling unloved, unseen, or emotionally starved isn't because love has abandoned you. It's because, deep within, there's a belief silently running the show, telling you that this is what you deserve. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's not just a quote. It's a wake-up call. Your spirituality isn't separate from your relationships. Every person who walks into your life, every dynamic that repeats, is a mirror held up to your beliefs. If your inner dialogue whispers that love must be earned, that you're not enough, or that being ignored is normal, your unconscious will shape your outer world to reflect that and call it destiny. But destiny isn't punishment. It's a pattern asking to be rewritten. True spiritual development begins when you stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself. It's in the moments when you say no to crumbs because you finally believe you deserve the feast. It's when you stop chasing potential and start honoring your presence. You attract what you believe you're worthy of, not what you post about or what you say you want. And your energy doesn't lie. If there's a wound still bleeding inside you, it will draw those who poke it. not those who heal it. This isn't your fault. It's your invitation. An invitation to turn inward and ask, what part of me still thinks this is all I can have? Because healing doesn't begin when someone finally treats you right. It begins the moment you stop betraying yourself. The moment you stop begging for bare minimum love and start embodying a higher standard. That shift in belief doesn't just change your relationships, it changes your life. It teaches you that love isn't something to be earned, it's something to be remembered, something you are. And that remembrance is the deepest form of spirituality. It's not about who texts back or who stays. It's about how deeply you've come home to yourself. When you recognize your worth without waiting for applause, when your boundaries become sacred rather than negotiable, when solitude feels rich instead of empty, you'll stop attracting chaos and start magnetizing peace. You'll stop tolerating confusion and start welcoming clarity. This is what spiritual development looks like in action, not in temples, but in the way you no longer abandon yourself to be loved. The way you say, I deserve more, not with arrogance, but with calm knowing. You are not here to be chosen by those who don't know how to see you. You are here to rise to a level where your very being becomes the choice. Because when your belief shifts, your energy shifts. And when your energy shifts, your entire experience of love transforms. You don't chase alignment anymore, you become it. If this message resonates with you, comment, I agree below. If you see it differently, feel free to comment, I don't think so. Your voice matters, and your beliefs shape your reality. 6. Transformation requires choosing the unknown. Most people remain trapped in relationships that no longer serve their soul simply because they are familiar. They cling to pain that's predictable rather than step into the mystery of the unknown, even when the unknown holds the promise of freedom. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And yet, that pain becomes a threshold, not a punishment, but an invitation. True transformation doesn't arrive in a neatly wrapped package. It arrives disguised as uncertainty, as the uncomfortable space where your old self no longer fits, and your new self hasn't yet fully formed. Growth, real spiritual growth, demands that you choose what is unfamiliar, not because it's easier, but because it's wiser. The familiar may give you temporary comfort, but the unknown holds the key to your evolution. It's in the unfamiliar that you meet your higher self. Where intelligence becomes more than intellect, it becomes self-trust, discernment, and spiritual wisdom. To choose the unknown is to trust that your future is more loyal to you than your past. It's to understand that not every connection is meant to last, and not every relationship deserves to follow you into your next chapter. Sometimes, the most intelligent decision is to leave not because you've given up, but because you've awakened. When you stay in what is familiar out of fear, you silence your inner voice and betray your deeper knowing. But when you choose discomfort in the name of growth, you reclaim your power and invite in the kind of alignment that comfort never gave you. Spiritual wisdom teaches that endings are not failures, they are redirections. The moment you stop settling for what merely feels familiar and begin seeking what actually feels true, you unlock the highest version of your life. Transformation begins when you no longer need proof to believe in your own potential. Choosing the unknown is not recklessness, it is intelligence in its most sacred form. If this message speaks to your soul, repeat after me. I am ready to walk into the unknown. I trust the transformation unfolding within me. 7. Your body and intuition always know. Your body holds a deeper wisdom than your mind is often willing to admit. Long before your intellect can rationalize, your nervous system already knows the truth. When you're around someone who disrupts your inner peace, your chest tightens, your breath shortens, and your energy dims. That discomfort isn't a flaw. It's a signal. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious is constantly guiding us through subtle signs. And in spiritual awakening, the body becomes the first place where these signals surface. When something feels off, even if everything appears fine on the surface, your system reacts tightness, fatigue, anxiety. These are not random. They are your soul's way of whispering, pay attention. True connection, on the other hand, does not disturb your peace. It deepens it. It doesn't drain your energy. It restores it. It doesn't make you question your worth. It reminds you of it. Your spiritual wisdom is found not just in your thoughts, but in the way your body responds when no one is watching. Real alignment makes you feel at home, not like you have to perform. If you're constantly second-guessing yourself, feeling invisible, or subtly shrinking to keep the peace, that is not love, it is survival. You were not born to survive people. You were born to connect, to thrive, to feel safe in your own skin while being seen for your truth. That calm presence you feel around certain souls isn't just chemistry, it's coherence. It's your energy field recognizing safety, spiritual alignment, and emotional congruence. Your nervous system does not lie. It remembers what your mind tries to forget, and it speaks in sensations unease, exhaustion, warmth, lightness. Learn its language, and you'll stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, chaos for passion, and anxiety for love. In modern life, we've been conditioned to override these sacred signals. We tell ourselves we're just tired, overthinking, or being too sensitive. But the truth is, sensitivity is a gift. It is spiritual intelligence in motion. To be in tune with your body is to be in tune with your truth. Jung warned that what remains unconscious will rule your life, and your body is the doorway to making the unconscious conscious. Stop ignoring the fatigue that hits after that phone call. Stop rationalizing the tension that always arises around that one person. Your soul already knows your body is just the messenger. You don't have to wait for betrayal, heartbreak, or collapse to validate your intuition. The spiritual path begins when you stop explaining away what your nervous system already understands. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are aware, and awareness is your power. 8. You must become the person you're looking for. You don't attract the right person by searching for them. You attract them by stepping fully into your truth, into your healed, whole, and self-anchored identity. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And that awakening is the gateway to the kind of love you've always deserved. When you stop asking the world to validate your worth and begin to embody that worth from within, everything changes. The search becomes unnecessary because your energy begins to speak louder than your words. You no longer confuse attention with affection or passion with peace. You no longer entertain dynamics that pull you out of alignment just to feel momentarily seen. Instead, you become the one who sees yourself clearly, who nurtures your own light so fully that anyone who steps into your life must rise to meet it, not dim it, fix it, or control it. This is the essence of spirituality and true spiritual development, not escaping your wounds, but transmuting them into wisdom. You attract from your level of healing, not your level of longing. When you're still waiting to be chosen, you tolerate behavior that betrays your spirit. But when you choose yourself fully, the need to be rescued disappears. Love, in its most elevated form, is not about completion, but companionship. It's not about fixing each other, but growing side by side in mutual respect, authenticity, and soul recognition. The deeper you go into yourself, the clearer your energy becomes, and that clarity becomes magnetic. You stop attracting chaos when your nervous system is regulated. You stop settling for potential when your self-worth is rooted in the present. You stop rehearsing old heartbreaks in new relationships when you've truly released the need to repeat the past. So instead of asking if they're the one, ask if you are showing up as the version of yourself who no longer negotiates peace for passion. Instead of waiting for the perfect person to arrive, ask if you are becoming the kind of person who inspires emotional safety, depth, and spiritual connection. If you want depth, embody it. If you want emotional maturity, live it. If you want soul-aligned love, stop entertaining anything that feels like a transaction of wounds. When you choose to evolve, to heal, to meet your own needs with reverence, you become the one, and from that space, you naturally attract another whole being who isn't there to fill your gaps, but to dance with your fullness. This is not about finding someone who fits your fantasy. It's about aligning with someone who recognizes your truth because they've met their own. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a message that could transform your path. Type in the comments, "I am becoming the person I'm meant to find," if you're ready to align with the love you truly deserve. 9. Healing prepares you for love. Carl Jung's Spiritual Wisdom teaches us that healing is not something you postpone for love. It's the very path that leads to it. Love is not a bandage for your emotional wounds, nor is it a substitute for your self-worth. When you're still bleeding inside, you seek love to save you. But when you've done the inner work, when you've met your shadows, faced your fears, and learned to sit in your own silence without shame, your energy changes, and so does the kind of love you attract. The right person doesn't show up when you're desperate for love. They show up when you're no longer needing love to define you. This is where real spiritual intelligence emerges, not from chasing someone, but from becoming someone who naturally draws in the energy you once had to beg for. As Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." In that awakening, you begin to recognize love not as a fantasy to chase, but a frequency to embody. Healing shifts your focus from finding someone who will fix you to someone who will grow with you. You stop seeking intensity that mimics the highs of trauma, and instead value peace, stability, and presence. You become more aware of what feels like home and less tempted by what only feels familiar. And in that stillness, someone arrives not to rescue you, but to respect the wholeness you fought to reclaim. You no longer confuse chaos with passion or attention with devotion. Their presence feels effortless because your vibration no longer echoes scarcity or fear. It emits clarity. That's the mark of a spiritual awakening. You start recognizing who genuinely mirrors your emotional growth, who listens to understand rather than to respond, and who joins your journey without trying to rewrite your path. And that is when love becomes a reflection of your healed identity, not a distraction from your pain. So if you've ever wondered whether someone is truly meant for you, don't look at the butterflies, the sparks, or even the synchronicities. Look at who you were when they entered your life. Were you loving yourself, or were you trying to fill a void? Were you acting from self-worth or self-abandonment? When love is born from healing, it won't feel like a rescue mission. It will feel like alignment. It won't be about being completed. It will be about being seen. And when two whole souls meet, not because they need, but because they choose, that's not just romance, it's spiritual wisdom in motion. And remember, when someone is truly meant for you, their presence will align with your growth, your peace, and your purpose, not your confusion. As Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. If this message touched something deep within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos that guide you closer to the truth, the soul, and the wisdom you were always meant to awaken.